friends, I'm Liz.
I'm Robby. Welcome back to our channel, Bookworm Couple. Today we are going to be talking about the fourth book in the Percy Jackson series, The Battle of the Labyrinth. I mean, I'll let you go first. What did you think?
I loved it.
I did too. Oh man, I'm so pumped to talk about this book. I'm so excited. This book finally got to where I wanted it to when we started this journey. You know what I mean? Like when when I was like, okay, we're going to be reading the Percy Jackson books and a reread for me, this finally got to that level of like, oh man, I love this. This is so great. Yeah. It's so good. So much happens in this book.
Well, I also think like they're growing. So like they're older now, which means that we can kind of tackle some more things. Yep. There's some more interest thrown in. There's some harder things that they're dealing with, which I feel like as an adult is more entertaining, you know?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that all the plot lines are really starting to come together, so the payoff in this book is huge. There's characters who come back and are more relevant in this book that made me really excited, and a bunch of new and cool characters as well. The action scenes are really intense. It's just, it's all really, really rapidly building towards a finale, you can tell, and just so much happens. And there's some really, like, poignant and adult kind of themes in this that I was not necessarily like super surprised by. I mean, I think every book Rick Riordan has forced me to reevaluate, you know, how much he would respect the intelligence of the reader, even if the target demographic is like a middle grade fiction book.
Absolutely.
He just he will call back to things from multiple books ago without really giving you a huge explanation. It's so, you know, I really, as you can tell, I really enjoyed this book.
Loved it.
This is my favorite one so far, for sure.
You know, it's funny, this book did get more serious, but we've been watching the series so much, the TV series, that I was like, oh yeah, it's silly.
Yes.
Because the series is not as silly, the TV series is not as silly as the books. Like, the first few chapters, I was like, oh yeah, it's silly. This is silly. Yeah. This silly stuff happens. Which I enjoyed, especially there was so much more maturity mixed into this one that the silly stuff could really be silly. You know, instead of like a plot device, was more of just like, they're kids. Oh yeah, they're kids. Yeah.
I had a blast. I really, start to finish, I couldn't put it down. I think I read it in 2 days. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited for
this
the
one.
Last
was longer than I thought it was. It was like 400 pages.
Something between 3 and 4, I think. Yeah, it was longer than I expected. But, I mean, I didn't feel it. It felt short. It flew by.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, there's very few things that I didn't like about this. That I kind of thought was like, Yeah. Yeah, I loved it. I had such a blast.
Me too.
Alright, so I guess we're going to start really diving into spoiler stuff now. So if you haven't read the book yet, highly recommend you go check it out. This is my favorite of the Percy Jackson books so far. So, yeah, really cannot recommend this enough. But we're going to start talking about spoilers in 3, 2, 1. So...
Oh my god! What's this one?
Okay.
Poseidon!
Yeah, I know. Poseidon showing up at the very end. That was...
We'll go back to that. I was just trying to think of the biggest spoiler that I could go
I think the biggest one would have been Quintus being Daedalus.
Yeah, that was good. You know what was so funny, that scene? It was like he came in and they were like, oh no, he's bad. I was like, duh, guys. I was like, this was supposed to be the big thing, and I'm supposed to realize he's bad. Duh, he's bad. And then he said that, and I was like, oh. You got me there, because I wasn't expecting that.
I've officially gotten to the point where I don't remember things anymore. I guess I must not have read the latter half of the Percy Jackson books as many times, because it just hasn't stuck in my memory. So, like, the Daedalus reveal, I was like, I should have caught that. That's great. I also really loved it from the point of view of, I'm like, this is like a kind of sci-fi like singularity thing where it's like we've uploaded our consciousness and then Nico gets involved,
and he's like
he's
a
the son of death,
bronze
and he's
guy.
It's no one should live this long, and also the implication of I didn't die because I hid from death, which killed me.
Dope.
That entire thing, I was like, this is great.
No, I loved it, and I like really wanted to meet his character. You know what's funny? We don't have to talk about. We can talk about this later. I was gonna say, now that we've seen Timothy Ottmanson in the series, I want him to play this character.
This effect? Yeah. Sure.
I was like, this is the character that I think he would slay. I mean, he was great.
Yeah, well, I mean, since we jumped right into characters, anyway, Quintus, I liked all of the new characters, like the new big characters, like Quintus, Mrs. O'Leary.
Oh my god, how cute!
That they added in this book.
I thought that was very well written, because from the second we met this giant dog, I was like, well, the giant dog's not
going to be bad. The
but
dog can't be
her owner's potentially bad, which was probably the point of me being like, you know, because you read enough and you're like, well, that's a bad guy. Like the first time I met Luke, I was like, well, he's bad. But with Quintus, you're like, oh, he's bad, but he's got this dog. And then he gives Percy this dog whistle, and Percy's suspicious of it, but also the dog is, like, really nice.
The dog is great.
And, like, very loyal. So it made me kind of think about Quintus a little bit differently, which is probably the point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all the new characters that they brought in, I'm trying to think who else. Ethan Nakamura, a small role, but I thought, I mean, obviously very pivotal with
more
being
like
the one
a
who...
sacrificial...
Yeah, and I thought it was appropriate that he turned out being the son of Nemesis, the god of revenge. I was like, that's poetic.
It is, and you know what, and I guess we're kind of going from the back of the book, but that's all right. Talking about, like, mature themes, I feel like a lot of the demigod kids this time around were like, well, this is my fate. This is a serious thing. And he was very much like, I can't, sorry, like, this is my fate. This is what I'm meant to do. Gotta do it type of a thing. And I felt that with Nico. I felt that with Annabeth. I felt that with Grover.
Yeah.
There was a very much, this was probably it was a more mature book, and it was more, not quite realistic, but I think all of the demigod kids, as you're getting older, which you do when you enter your early, or your mid-teens, you're like, okay, I have to take onus of who I am, what I'm doing, what I want to do, what my actions do, and I thought there was a lot of that.
There was. I mean, the book overall I thought was just, like, heavier. I also thought, for example, at the big battle at the end, they actually put names to the campers who died.
Oh, yeah.
Which was new. They've talked about demigods dying before, but they haven't, to my knowledge, they haven't really put a name to any of them, except for Thalia, who was actually alive. And so I thought that, like, Dionysus is one of the twins.
Yeah.
Castor, I believe, passed away and stuff. And so, you know, that, in general, even just putting names, even if you haven't really heard them before, they weren't really characters that were interacted much in the book, makes it automatically heavier.
Much heavier.
And also, I mean, speaking of new characters, Calypso. That entire island scene I thought was interesting. I assume it's going to come back and pay dividends in the future, but my favorite part of it was the bit where Percy was being like, how on earth could you have supported the Titans? She's like, well, I'm here because I did support the Titans. He's like, how? And she's like, well, because it's my dad.
Yeah.
And I supported my family, and made Percy face the fact that he's really supporting gods because Poseidon is his dad. That's pretty much it. And it's just, you know, it's a kind of theme. I didn't expect to see that. His dad
really has no relationship with.
Exactly.
Then that's very much the
point. There's no, he doesn't necessarily believe the gods are right. I mean, of course, what the Titans army is doing is objectively terrible. They're, like, killing a bunch of people. But he's not following the gods because he's like, they're the best. He's just, they're my family. Yeah. And it makes him really kind of focus up and makes everything grayer, which is not something I expected from a middle grade fiction book.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed that. And the whole bit with Calypso, I thought Calypso was great.
I thought Calypso was great. It reminded me of the second book in the Name of the Wind series when he's in the forest with that nymph.
Sure, yeah.
Very similar vibes of, like, no one can touch us here. This is this special little place. And I thought that was really interesting with, like, Percy, especially because this book, Percy, is definitely acknowledging his attraction to other humans.
We all are. This is the romance. It is so romantic.
Those teens
teens
are ready to kiss.
I think it started in, like, the first chapter where Sally's like, you're going on a date? And he's like, what? No. I was like, okay, we're here. It's just literally, Percy's got three
ladies. Oh, yeah.
Grover's got a girlfriend.
Yeah, she's cool. I want more of her.
It's great. I was like, yeah, I'm into it. And you know what's really funny is, of course, you know, the jealousy and all that stuff. But the thing is, it didn't bother... We'll talk about it in more detail. It didn't bother me that much because I'm like, they're kids. This is kind of funny and cute.
I tried to have that lens with it.
Yeah.
But I'm very much also, like, I'm in a very different place in my life. I am a almost 33-year-old married woman. And so, like, for me, it's more, I get it. I know that's, like, natural, but my dream is for that not to be natural.
Sure,
for, like, women and young men and young people just to not see someone as a threat. And that is such a common... It's, like, spoken to us as young people, at least as young women, of, like, oh, well, she's really pretty. Oh, the boy you liked was talking to that girl. Like, even from, like, you know, my elders would say those kinds of things to me as a young woman of, like, oh, well, you gotta look really cute because so-and-so is gonna be there. Immediately putting me in competition with another woman. And that is just so unnecessary moving on in life. And it is so harmful and toxic for later on in life, for your relationships, for yourself, for your relationship with yourself. So while I understand it, I hate it.
Yeah. Okay. That's
but you know very much that is a trigger point for me. That is very much, I'm like, okay, let's like not do this. And especially coming from, which I guess it is powerful coming from Annabeth, who is a very self-confident, self-assured person. You see her very much as more of a human, but then I was also like, her too? Like, she didn't need to be jealous.
Went after Rachel Elizabeth Dare, who and
Rachel Elizabeth Dare was really cool from the start.
She was
great. She was cool with everybody. She was not trying to start drama. She was not trying to make anybody jealous. She was just trying to have a relationship with this person that she met. And
why are you looking at me like that?
I'm laughing at myself because like I couldn't stand it. I can't say it distracted me as much as it has in other novels that we've read, but it was just like the constant, every time it came up, I was like trying to push it away, being like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like, I can't.
Second half of the book must have been rough.
It's so annoying. Oh my God, it's just so frustrating to me. It's so frustrating to me, especially, it just takes away women's power. And especially like young women, it takes away this Annabeth, this confident, intelligent young woman, feeling like she has to immediately compete with another woman when nothing has ever been brought up to her about that being the case at all. It just frustrates me beyond belief. But it's not like, I'm not mad at Rick Riordan. I understand why it was written. I was there as a 13-year-old. I get it. I would love to stop that narrative. Anywho, we could talk about the ladies. I loved all the ladies. I thought they were great. I love Rachel Elizabeth Dare. I think she's so fun.
Did you think she was going to come back after the last book?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, you did? Okay.
100%. You can't have someone that like has that big of a reaction.
We didn't talk about. I purposely didn't really bring her up, I think, at all in the last video because I didn't want to like hint.
Yeah, of course. Of course, she was going to come back.
Mm-hmm. I also love that she's, of course, like a rich Brooklyn kid.
Yeah.
I was like, doing like weird art to raise money.
Yeah, she is.
This is great.
Performance art.
She's awesome. I love that she was like immediately confident and competent. And of course has to have some sort of story with her family as all,
as
high school
preteens
kids
and teenagers
need to have.
do. Yeah.
But it being relevant to like the Pan storyline, I thought was nicely woven in. Which, I mean, I guess speaking of I thought that was wonderful.
I thought that was beautiful.
It was beautiful. The scene.
I was not expecting that.
Grover
at all.
Yeah, Grover's storyline in this was just, I think the payoff was stunning. Just an absolutely huge payoff.
Yeah.
I think like my favorite line from the entire book is when Pan is about to die and he says, tell people if you want to find Pan, you need to take his spirit for yourself. You can't wait for, I'm paraphrasing, but you can't wait for anyone to do something for you, even a god. And I was like, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't expect like philosophical musings from Percy Jackson book, to be completely honest. I thought that the payoff was unbelievable. I think, and it continued because the entire book starts the themes of like loss and death and, your dreams not necessarily coming true or the responsibilities you have to take on yourself to make your dreams come true are huge throughout the whole thing. Literally with Nico being like kind of the personification of death being in their shadow the whole time. And then it culminating in this with a god dying and Grover having to take that responsibility and then like immediately stepping up and just doing it.
Yeah.
I thought it was wonderful. I thought the entire thing, I was sad that him and Tyson went off on their own and kind of disappeared for a while. But, I mean, the payoff was stunning. And also, I mean, Tyson and Grover becoming friends was also amazing.
Delightful.
And Tyson even got his own arc.
Yeah. Oh,
like
yeah.
a really
with
beautiful
the
poignant with the 100-handed one. With Briar Riz, or whoever you say his name.
I will never be able to.
I was literally as soon as Tyson came back, I was like, it's like the Avengers. We're getting all the good characters together. This is the best. And then he wasn't just there. He had like a very real purpose.
And he has such more of an emotional plot in this
Exactly.
book. And you can even see it in his language as well. Like it's definitely much more elevated than it was when we first met him. And him and Percy's relationship, how they're just unquestioningly loyal and brothers, and it's just so sweet. Sally taking him in, just is the cutest thing ever.
I just I couldn't get over the, because someone so innocent meeting their hero and then realizing their hero, isn't who they want to be, and not immediately like being crushed, but being like, I need to help them.
Yeah,
I was like, this is beautiful.
You're the best.
I love Tyson. And also Paul Blofeld being like, wait, what? He's Percy's brother? She's like, not mine.
Yeah, no, not mine. Not mine. I agree with you with the pan thing. I thought I was not expecting a like commentary on the way that we as humans treat the earth.
Yes.
And it is very interesting how long ago this was written. Not that we would have been able to figure everything out in a decade or two time, but like how this was very much of like, look at what we're doing, and we're still very much saying that question, at least I am, of being like, look at what we're doing to the wild.
Yeah.
And let's sink back in and see how we can bring that, like, even gets brought back in with Calypso asking Percy to make a garden in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And that was such a beautiful visual for me, having lived in New York, not Manhattan, but close enough, of seeing how much built up is there and finding your little bit of nature, finding your little bit of wild, and watching people, how helpful and how fruitful that is for people to invest in. I like the word wild a lot, because it's more than just nature. It's the wild. We're not going to ever like plow down all the buildings and just have forests again. Maybe some of them, but like so to find your little bits of wild and invest in that, to bring that back into the world, and how important that is to have in your heart, rather than like, you know, it was more of a like softer of like, you can make little incremental changes by thinking differently. And I thought that was beautiful. Yeah,
I thought it went beyond my wildest expectations. I really, really, really enjoyed that entire sequence.
Let's talk about Nico.
Speaking of Nico, I think that
Nico, our like, emo baby boy.
He's such an emo baby boy.
The way they described the first time Percy sees him, I think the first time he sees him is in a vision.
Yes.
And I literally was like, oh my god, his like hair is long and he's disheveled, and I was just picturing this like tiny kid trying to be emo, which is exactly his vibe. Yeah.
I think Nico's the most
sweet baby emo baby of Angel of Death.
Intriguing character, and his storyline to me is the most intriguing in this, because it's just, even at the end of this book where he's just like, I'm not welcome here. He's like, even if...
Well, and you know what's interesting, because it took me a while to be like, how does he just like, the way he holds himself, this character holds himself, the way he speaks, the way he just like knows how to say like, I banish you, like he's got all the things and the spells.
He does some cool stuff in this book.
He's very, very new to realizing he's a demigod. And so I was kind of taken aback by that. But then near the end, more I was thinking about how he is so from a different era anyways, because of when they entered the Lotus Casino. He's been around for a long time, so it makes sense that his kind of level of maturity would kind of quickly...
Also, he's like 11, I think, in this book or something like that, and completely on his own, and literally in the underworld with an ancient evil king ghost. So, like, you know, I think that would make your maturity kind of...
Yeah. It took me a minute to be like, how does he know how to do all this stuff? And then I was like, well, okay.
Also, Percy kind of just, like, is still figuring it out and doesn't, like, no one teaches him anything, and he's just kind of like, yeah, this feels right.
Yeah, but the confidence that Nico has is different than any of the other kids.
I mean, I think that it makes sense to me. It's almost reminiscent of Annabeth, because Annabeth has that confidence because she was on her own.
She does. That's 7, very true, yeah.
And he's in the same situation.
Well, I'm also, like, I'm referencing the moments in when he's, like, speaking in ancient Greek. I'm like, who taught him that? How did he do that? And then he's like, you know... I banish you, blah, blah, blah. He's like got all the words, like the right spells and things, and like somehow you figured that out, because that seems like a lot of work.
I think to me the non-Greek ones felt a lot like they were like improvised and saying what he felt in the time.
But they sounded really good.
Yeah, well, I think
legit.
If there's anything we can agree on, that kid's got a streak of melodrama.
He
is,
boy, yeah.
And so I really liked the callback to Mythomagic.
Yeah,
at the end,
so glad,
and that scene
he was
with
burning
Percy.
his cards at the beginning, and then Percy gave him a card back, and he was like, no, you have like 5,000 points.
Yeah, I really like the scene with Percy being like, it's okay to still be a kid. Sometimes. I thought that was, our boy Percy's growing up, giving advice to little mentees who hated him for a while because he blamed them for his sister's death.
Yeah. I was actually kind of surprised that Bianca was actually dead.
Oh,
because
really?
I function in the, like, we didn't see her die. because that's what happens in every fantasy thing ever. And so I was like, okay, I'm glad we like got to chat with her, because I was like, oh, okay, this is actually her spirit. She has left the mortal world.
Yeah.
And
I think it's appropriate because they're literally the children of death. And
yeah.
so,
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I understand.
I just was like, okay, cool. I personally needed that
to make sure that she's real dead.
Yeah.
I will also
that she wasn't just like popping back, because Luke popped back.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of Luke.
Oh, Luke.
Did you expect that to happen?
Wiener. I expected a variation of that to happen.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because there was hinted at so much about like how he didn't die when he got pushed off the cliff, and then they kept making, and this is, every author does this, of the like, there's like little like winks, throughout it, being like, why is he looking so weird? Why does he want to talk to Annabeth? Why is he looking kind of happy? And I was like, okay, there's obviously something big happening with Luke.
Yeah.
I still cannot get over the fact that Luke's like villain costume is like khakis and a tucked in shirt.
It was combat fatigues, this one, for the
most
part.
No. Well, when Kronos takes on his body, it was like...
I thought it was combat fatigues before that, too. Am I wrong? I might be wrong.
No, I'm saying, but when we see Kronos...
Yeah.
It's like described in like, he's got like chinos on.
Yeah, he's got like...
And like whatever. He had...
Yeah.
Luke had a different outfit on, but when Kronos takes over his body...
Kronos is a prep. Boy.
No, but that was his first reveal of like Luke's villain costume in book 2. He's like he's a finance bro.
Yeah. I mean, the tragedy of Luke continues.
Oh, Luke. This was the first time I did kind of feel bad for Luke in a very long time. Well, and it was mainly because, it really got to me when Annabeth revealed the end of her. What's it called? Prophecy. Thank you. When Annabeth revealed the end of her prophecy. Yeah, and that was a real punch in the old teenage chest of like this. Obviously, Annabeth had some sort of love, whether it was familial love or romantic love, mostly romantic love, for Luke. And there's a lot, it's very easy to see her reaction to him throughout these series of being like, no, but like, we can make him better again. And you're like, okay, Annabeth. Yeah. And then seeing Annabeth get really emotional, which she doesn't really often, made me get emotional. And I was like, this Luke kid, such a wiener.
This is the first time where it like really, I mean, the whole time Annabeth being like, he's gonna, like, we can bring him back, has always been there, but this feels like a turn.
Yeah, and I think, and it was...
It's a big wedge between her and Percy.
It was really the first time, too, that I kind of agreed with Annabeth's way of thinking, because we are in Percy's head this whole time. If we had been in Annabeth's, like, coming from Annabeth's point of view, getting more of her relationship with Luke, you could probably understand, at least I would be able to understand her fight for this human that she loves so much that has been turned, feeling like she knows his human heart well enough to bring him back. But we don't get a whole lot of her POV, which now, getting a little bit more of her emotion, it really, really struck home how hard that is. Yeah. And her and Percy are dating now?
I don't think that they're dating. I mean, they had that kiss, which was great.
Which they never talked about. I was like...
They had a lot of stuff.
I know, but I'm actually kind of surprised the two of them never brought that up to one another again, because they are very close.
Percy disappeared for like 2 weeks immediately after that, and they thought
they forgot?
She literally had a funeral for him.
Yeah, for sure. Like, but we're not going to talk about it? I don't want to talk about it.
Immediately, Rachel Elizabeth Dare shows up and starts going out the works.
And then Annabeth is like, we kissed.
And also, I mean, Percy had the whole thing with Calypso in between.
Sexy.
So there's a lot. There's a lot happening to Percy.
Percy is like Rand. All of the ladies are just magnetized to Percy.
I did like that scene where they did have that first kiss and Percy like blows up the volcano, kind of showing his power progressing, but also how dangerous it can become. And and then we get a reference to that, my favorite part of this whole book, when Poseidon shows up at his apartment. Yeah, that was a big.
And Sally gets all flustered.
And Paul Blowfist. Also, shout out to Paul and Sally on their upcoming nuptials. Super excited about that.
And the conversation that he had with Percy was so sweet. And what I love so much, because we had Gabe in the beginning, and
he was the worst.
Yeah, he was worse. And poor Sally, I feel like just like hasn't really like won at love because she had Poseidon, and obviously Poseidon is a god, so like they're not fully together. And then she had Gabe, and I was a little suspicious of Paul. And then Percy was like,
Paul's great.
well, my mom always seems to like laugh when she's around him. She seems really happy.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
I love it.
Paul.
Yeah.
What a sweetie.
Yeah. Paul is great.
This is my pitch. Maybe I just need to find some Percy Jackson fanfic because it might exist. I need more Sally. I want Sally's POV. I want to know about Sally and Poseidon. I want like a flashback to Sally and Poseidon. Then I want more Sally in the present. I need Sally. I need some Sally novels. I need some Sally content.
I did like the scene with Poseidon and his conversation with Percy.
I loved it, and I loved how realistic everything was. Where he's like, "I'm Poseidon," and Paul's like "Really?" And like the sea god, and he's like, "Yup." And Sally's like, "This is Percy's dad." It's just kind of like they deal with it very much, and I liked seeing that people be like, I can't say this about this person because I'm with this person. And I was like, great, this is how adults should deal with relationships.
Yeah, I really liked that scene. It was the longest conversation they've had, I think.
Yeah, it was nice to see Poseidon be a dad.
Yeah, it was.
He also said Percy's his favorite son, which I was like...
I thought that too.
I mean, cute, but
I was like, come on, you got Tyson. Let's be real. Tyson's great.
Well, and my thought was also like, do you need to say that to anyone? Even if they are your favorite son, just...
He's the only human son he currently has, at the very least. And then Nico coming back at the end, too, I did enjoy.
Yeah, having some cake like a real kid.
That's, yeah. I like how Percy is becoming like a mentor to him.
Yeah, like a big brother.
One other character that wasn't in it too much, but I did appreciate was Clarice. Because... they gave her something to do, and also, it was so funny, like, repeatedly throughout the book, I wrote down in my notes, if Rick Riordan puts something in the book, it's not just there to be there. He is going to use it. Like, literally it is, like, the most economical use of stuff. There's never, like, a red herring. It's like, if it's in there, it's gonna be used. Need it. Like, Triple G Ranch on the boxes of the Scorpions in the beginning. And Clarice disappearing for the entirety of the last book. He could have just done that because he's like, I don't have anything for her to do and whatever, and we don't need to talk about it again, and no one would have thought twice. But he gave her a very real reason to have been gone, and then used it to do character development. I do wish it hadn't sidelined her for the entire book, because it would have been interesting to get her, like,
but it humanized her a lot.
But it humanized her a lot, and of course, stayed in with the very romantic theme of this book.
We're at the age.
Chris,
we're 15. We're feeling sexy.
But yeah, so I really liked that as well. And the same thing with King, the Ghost of Minos, or however you say his name. Yeah. Because it was just like, okay, Nico's with an evil ghost. And not only is that evil ghost relevant to the storyline, it's relevant to this specific book storyline immediately. And speaking of that storyline, I really enjoyed the fact that they didn't paint Daedalus as just the victim.
No, I agree. I was actually just about to say that. I liked how much of the back... What's the word I'm trying to say?
Flashbacks?
Flashbacks, thank you.
Yeah, I like those too.
I liked how the flashbacks... we got a little bit more in each one, because the first one you're like, oh man, this poor guy and his son died, oh man, and then you get a little bit of Daedalus being a bad guy, and then you get a little bit of Minos, and then you get a little bit of, like, you get so much history, so you can't just put things as black or white, because it's so nuanced, and there's so much story that shows what created these creatures, like what created the behavior behind,
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was more complex than it could have been. It would have been really simple to just paint Minos as the villain and Daedalus as the victim, and that's all that happens. But, showing us that Daedalus did some terrible things. And, even though he was suffering, obviously, Minos is obviously a villain, but, Daedalus is obviously no saint. And I thought that was a really nice touch. No one is 100%
and also, like,
good or
Minos
bad.
lost his daughter. Yeah. There's some complexities there that do make it much more gray. Yeah,
I liked it a lot. I really enjoyed that entire storyline, and the action sequences in this book were also quite thrilling. I thought that the scene in the Garden of the Gods in Daedalus's workshop was awesome.
Really
Nico
cool.
being really cool, them jumping out the
cool
window,
stuff,
Quintus and Mrs. O'Leary like fighting for their lives. I was like, this is really great. The arena was really cool, but like dark and violent.
Yeah, very.
When he had to fight Ethan Nakamura, and I was like, this is.
Well, and Percy was very much Percy, where he's like, nah, bro, we're not doing this.
Yeah, we're not gonna fight.
We're not gonna do this.
But yeah, I liked most of the action sequences. I thought
the final battle was very intense. I thought it went very fast.
It did, yes.
Maybe I do think the whole book was pretty fast paced, not like not thought out well. It was very fast paced, and I felt that about the last battle. And I loved that Grover came in
and scared everyone.
Stopped the whole thing.
Yeah, Grover got a big power.
It took me a minute to be like, that was just Grover just like doing that? Was everybody left because Grover?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Grover.
Yeah, no, the last battle was really intense. I thought that the Sphinx scene didn't need to be there. That was like one of my few complaints. I was like,
literally
why is
forgot
this
about
happening?
it until you said it right now.
Because it didn't do anything.
Well, they bring it back
happened.
later on with there was some reference to it.
There's a reference to it, but nothing really comes
it was more. I think it was more of a device to show more of Annabeth's character.
Yeah, and she really got put through the ringer in this book. It's a really heavy emotional book for her, and specifically with like she finally gets her quest, but of course it's not exactly what she thinks, and she's realized like it's been her dream for so long, but it's not exactly what she wants, and the trade-off you have to make, like as you're a kid and you grow up, you have these dreams, and then you realize the older you get, well, there's certain responsibilities and things that you have to take on to make those come true, even if there's things you really, really don't want in there, and I just, I mean, our kids our heroes are growing up.
They are.
Yeah.
Look at them go.
But yeah, the Sphinx was one of the few misses I thought in this book. I was just like,
unnecessary.
Okay, whatever.
I get why I was there. Obviously, we're in the Labyrinth.
Yeah, it was fine. We're in the Labyrinth, and I loved the Labyrinth. Again, his Riordan's world building continues to tickle me. I think it's always great. Like it's like, okay, the Labyrinth has been continually self-perpetuating and building itself for thousands of years. We spent so much time in it,
so we really got to like know the Labyrinth.
And it just moves. And it's just like, great, cool, understand, don't need anything else. Great, I'm 100% on board. I really liked the time difference as well. Yeah. That it spent more time in the... I feel like I wish that had played a little bit more of a role. Yeah. But I did like it a lot.
What are we going to rate it out of? 100-handed ones? Imagine trying to find a visual for that. No,
I refuse. Yeah, what are we going to rate this out of? Labyrinths.
Labyrinths are great. Ariadne's string.
Wings for Icarus. Could do wings. I don't know. That would be...
I mean, a labyrinth is kind of fun.
Labyrinth, sure. I don't know what the visual for that's going to be, but I'm going to do my best.
Okay,
so cool. How many labyrinths out of 5 would you give this?
This is an easy 5 labyrinths.
5 labyrinths for you. Wow, even with the jealousy thing that you didn't...
Yeah, it's I know it's going to be there. It's also like, especially, not that we're that far ahead in this era, but like, especially this is written for teens years ago. I get it.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5 labyrinths. Whoa, I really struggle with that. Yeah, I love this. This was my favorite one so far.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I thought it was a fantastic book.
I really cannot wait to see where it goes. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more of our videos. You can check out the rest of our videos about the Percy Jackson books. We've also been doing little reactions to each... we're little discussions about each episode of the Percy Jackson series. You can check those out as well. And thank you all so much for watching, and...
we'll see you on our next adventure.